So, welcome back to Chapter 9, The Law of Similars. Now, I apologise up front, this is going to be a long one, quite frankly, because this is actually the longest chapter in the book, but it's also the one where he describes his, as it states here, the Law of Similars. And as we've been talking about before in this book, this guy believes, even though it's been proven to be false years and centuries ago, the theory of the four humours has absolutely nothing to say that it works, is a valid medical theory, and is absolutely preposterous to be thought of as such today. So I'm going to try and keep as short as I can on veering off into details, because this is a long chapter. I do want to try and get through it as quickly as I can. So let's begin, shall we? Now, the homeopath in me gets to flex his muscles. What I'm about to describe is a piece of the homeopathic view of health and disease. One of my specialties is homeopathic medicine. I have 20 years in clinical experience of this sort of thing, so let me embellish a little. Remember, homeopathy is just one type of holistic medicine. Then I'm veering off already, but I have to question, there are many different types. You've got chiropractors, acupuncturists, as he's already described. How then can you get an accurate description of what is wrong with you if you have all these different types of, again, competing medical practices giving you different symptoms? It's a well-known fact. You can go to all 5 of these different people, give exactly the same type of symptoms to everyone, and you will get a completely different diagnosis from each and every one. That is a big problem. Yep. It has its own unique way to work within the holism of the body, and its own unique medicines which it uses in the treatment of disease. Here's a little window into the mind of a homeopath. To a homeopath, the symptoms of a disease are everything. They are the alpha and omega. They are the gold ring that the homeopath tries to grasp when sitting in the presence of the sick and unhealthy. Acute and direct awareness of the symptoms is completely indispensable to discovery of the curative medicine with homeopathy. So he's basically saying that it's not the cancer that is your problem, it's the symptoms around the cancer that are the problem. So you've got to look at the symptoms first and not what's actually wrong with the body, which is what whole modern medicine is designed to do and deal with. And yes, modern medicine does also deal with the symptom as well, because if you treat the cause, then you cure the disease. However, guys like this approach it ass backwards. Why? Because, well, they've got to be different from MDs, is the only reason, really. Where are we? If a homeopath does not have a good understanding of the symptoms of the sick person, he will not be able to come up with effective treatment. Interestingly, to the homeopath, symptoms of the sick person are represented in the ways that most people would find curious. Why would you find that curious? I was walking down the street one day when a friend of mine, who is an architect, remarked that the town we were in was little boring because of the Historic Direct Commission had implemented rules that restrained how many colours you could paint a house, and even what type of materials that could be used on the outside. Well, I might have said that the Pope was Protestant because he sat me down and proceeded to give me a detailed schooling of the intricacies of local architecture that I had completely overlooked. And we were both looking at the same scenery But where I was homogenic and saw detail and uniqueness, this house had copper gutters, and this house had a whale-tail door knocker made of brass. The one had a circular window over the door, the one next to it had an upside-down horseshoe masoned into the brickwork of its chimney, etc., etc. This attention to detail is what homeopaths use to analyse someone who is sick. And doctors don't. The homeopath in me is able to pull all the details of all the symptomology, which is the normal person would completely overlook. As an example, let's say a person suffering from migraine headaches, they go to their MD for help. Their office visits last 10 minutes. After listening to a brief description of what the patient is going on, the MD comes up with a diagnosis. The migraine headaches as a genetic malediction was given. As a generic malediction was given. In fact, that MD saw 100 migraine patients that week. They would all get Florinol. The patient takes the drug and it helps manage the pain, but a few days the pain comes back and gets a stronger strength Florinol is given. This continues for 6 months with the Florinol, helping shorten the intensity and duration of the attacks, but every few weeks its dosage has to be increased and the migraines keep on coming. The patient is eventually put on 3 different drugs over the course of 3 years and tries to manage the pain, and nothing gets cured, the migraines keep coming. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not a doctor, but if I was a doctor and someone came to me with constant migraine headaches, I wouldn't be saying, I'd be sending them to a specialist, I'd be sending them to get scans and other stuff, because evidently there are things beyond that you cannot see, that you cannot observe, because this guy is saying that he observes stuff. So how can you observe the inside of someone's body? How do we know that, for example, this migraine wasn't the start of, I don't know, a brain tumour, or it was because of a blood clot? Something like that. You cannot see inside the human body to detect that detail. It is impossible. Eventually the migraine sufferer gets fed up with ineffective drug treatments and goes to his friendly neighbourhood homeopath for help. The office visits last 1.5 hours. I think that's because they want to get the money's worth out of them. The homeopath takes an in-depth symptom inventory and asks the patient detailed oriented questions about the headache. Questions like, where anatomically do you feel the pain? Is it in the front of the head, the sides, the back? Does it hurt on the side one more than the other? What does it feel like? Does the pain stay in one spot? Does it shift around? When does the pain occur? How long does it last? Is there a predictable pattern for onset of attacks? What makes the pain feel better? What makes the pain feel worse? Are there any other physical, mental or emotional symptoms that accompany the head pain? Does anything repeatable or predictable happen right before or after an attack? Historically, what was going on in your life when the attack first occurred? Are there any other physical, mental or emotional complaints that have bothered you in a chronic fashion over the course of your life? Sorry, but a doctor is going to ask those questions. And if, for example, let's say a patient from another doctor came with, "Doctor, I've been having these headaches for, as you say, a year," then of course the first thing they're going to do is they're going to send them to hospital and they're going to get and order scans. Because evidently there is something other going on. It's not just a migraine that's going on. There is something else that is causing these going on. That is what an MD is going to do. So, as I've said before, this guy knows nothing about how, medical doctors actually operate. He just proved it there yet again. The homeopath is not asking these questions to be polite to the patient, nor to engage in the patient's trust. He's asking them because to the homeopath, the way that the body expresses its symptoms holds the key to determining the cure. When Sherlock Holmes examined a crime scene, all of the minute details were important to him and came into play, just as sometimes as it was the cigarette ash under the kitchen table that held the key to solving the crime for Holmes, sometimes it is strange, rare or peculiar symptoms expressed by the patient that holds the key for the cure for the homeopath. Here is an example of what a migraine sufferer may disclose from the prognosis of a competent homeopath. Doc, I get these sharp stabbing pains over my left eye. The attacks happen once every 2 weeks, but I'm really worried about something or somebody that they can happen to. They last all day. Sometimes the pain feels like they go backwards into my brain, but mostly I feel them over my left eye. The skin of my face around the left eye gets greatly sensitive during the attacks. I don't want anything or anyone to touch me there. Sometimes the pain feels better, but if I put a cold towel on my forehead, but I don't like to do this because when I take the towel off, the pain always gets worse. I often feel dizzy right before the pains happen, and the dizziness is made 10 times worse if I look down at the ground. If I lie on my left side, the pain gets much worse also. It doesn't also help the night because I sleep best when I'm lying on my left side. The other thing that helps me deal with the pain is that I lie perfectly still. The pain started 4 years ago, about 1 month after my mum was diagnosed with cancer. I worry about her too much, I know, but I can't help it. So that's what his patient would describe to him, essentially. Now, when did you ever have a conversation with your doctor that went something like that? Did I hear you say never? Well, that's part of the course of the ass-backwards land of allopathic reductionism. Again, just more buzzwords. It's too bad, really. These conversations happen in my office every day, and in the office of every good homeopath around the world. As homeopaths, we've been trained to listen closely to the symptomatic language of the body. That means, but a doctor would do that as well. He would examine the patient and listen to them as well and find out what's going on. This is, again, this guy lies completely about homeopaths, or not homeopaths, but MDs, because he knows nothing about them. It's just like, what? Does it hold the key to the cure? Why does it hold the key to the cure? I thought you would never ask. This is where homeopathic philosophy gets really interesting, and even borders on the mystical. A homeopath pays attention to the symptoms of the sick person because he is trying to find a medicine that produces exactly the same symptoms as when it is given to a healthy individual. So you are saying that you are going to give a medicine to someone that causes someone who isn't having migraines to have migraines. That cures them. Why? What have we been saying about the four humours? Because this guy believes in the four humours naturally making someone have more of a migraine is going to somehow cure them because it magically balances them out. No, that doesn't work. And needless to say, before we get into any more, remember, homeopathy is flavoured water, essentially. You can watch a video of James Randi down an entire bottle of homeopathic medicine, and on the bottle it says if you have more than a certain dosage, you might die. He takes the entire bottle at the beginning of the speech and is still standing after the speech, and he's still standing today. So I think homeopathic medicine does sod all for your body. Where were we? Yeah. So it's finding a medicine that produces the exact same symptoms as given to a healthy individual. The migraine sufferer above would be given a medicine... What the hell? I'm going to pronounce this awfully. Spagyla athema, I think it is. That's how you say it. Don't know, never seen it before. Because when a healthy person takes it, they get exactly the same pains that is migraines suffer when experiencing. I have italicized the word exactly in the last two sentences for a reason. In order for the law of similars to work, the medicine delivered to the sick person must match their subjective symptoms exactly. This is the problem. This is the problem with homeopathy. If a homeopath does not hit the bullseye with the prescription, nothing of value will happen to the disease state. The law of similars is a harsh mistress and demands 100% accuracy with each prescription. So now he's bigging himself and homeopaths up that they are so precise in their diagnosis of you that they will give you the exact symptoms. And of course, here's their caveat: if the medicine they gave you didn't work, well, you didn't describe your symptoms well enough. So of course that's their get out of jail free card. And of course, let's say you go to this guy and then all of a sudden you topple over dead and there was, you had a brain tumour or something like that which was causing these migraines, or maybe, it was something else, and of course it had nothing to do with the migraines. How is that medicine going to solve that problem? It's not, is the simple answer. And again, let me just emphasise, this is why this guy is a quack. If another patient was suffering from migraines but his pain was over the right eye and felt worse when lying still, Spigella would not afford him a cure. This is why to every homeopath the concept of generic diagnosing for a disease is childish and absurd. Yeah, of course it is. So you don't think that there might be a deeper something inside the body which you cannot see, nor the patient itself cannot see. Again, I'm at chapter 9 now. If you are not convinced this guy is a quack from purely what I've just read, then I really have to question. There is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all homeopathic medicine for anything. There's no such thing as that in modern medicine either. As disclosed before, this concept of paying attention to the language of the symptoms also brings to light an interesting distinction between allopathic and holistic medicine, in this case homeopathy. Allopaths have been trained to treat the disease, so everyone with the same diagnosis gets the same drug. Homeopaths have been trained to treat the person, so everyone gets the medicine most suitable for their own unique set of symptoms. Ostensibly, a homeopath could be treating triplets for pneumonia, and even though they have the same genes and were exposed to the same bacterial stress, they will need 3 different medicines in order to get better, because they have 3 completely different sets of symptoms, of pneumonia symptoms. Again, this is the problem, because he's treating symptoms, not the disease, which is pneumonia. And we know what causes pneumonia. We know this is how you treat it. This is why when people go to homeopaths, they end up getting worse, or the homeopaths misread things completely, and, they end up dying of something else. But, of course, these guys are, medical marvels, according to this guy. So let's take this concept one step further. From the unique perspective of the homeopath, there is no such thing as pneumonia or asthma.
Is there anything they can't do?
Right? Or any other disease for that matter. You think I am wrong. Yes, you are wrong, Pete. Okay, please bring me some pneumonia. We can actually do that, Pete. I'm not sure if you're actually aware of that, but we can actually do that. Can't do it? Well, think about a pen. Can you bring me a pen? You can. Well, thank you. What about arthritis? Can you bring me a box of arthritis? Arthritis is caused by the degeneration of the joints and the cartilage. So, again, no, we can't bring you a box of arthritis as the same way we can with pneumonia, but we can show you it. We can bring you someone with arthritis and show you the scans and x-rays and show you, look, this arthritis is caused because of the cartilage is worn down. You know, I'm not a doctor, right? And yet it says a lot that I can prove this guy wrong. What's that you say? You can't do it. Exactly. Because you can't diagnose names that are merely that. They are names only. And as such, they are intangible. A pen, on the other hand, is a tangible object. A diagnosis name is only a description of the general state of a disease process. It does not exist in the real physical world as a tangible object. I hope you realise just how stupid that was, given what I've just said about pneumonia. This is the type of guy who would go, here's a bottle of anthrax. he would gladly open it at that point, because of course it doesn't exist in the real or physical world. Somehow the closed-minded allopath has chosen to turn a blind eye to the individualizing details of symptoms of the sick and focused instead on its gross generalities. This is like a chinchilla, a Great Dane, and a mutt that is half Cocker Spaniel, half Golden Retriever, as all dogs. Well, yes, they are in fact dogs, but they are at the same time extremely different from each other. And you'd think that those distinctions would be important. But at the end of the day, they are still dogs. Anatomically speaking, they may be different sizes and different breeds, and they are different physically, but inside they are still the same. You know, a chinchilla, a Chihuahua dog is, exactly the same as your Great Dane. Body-wise, inside it is exactly the same. Any vet will tell you that. So, if you're a vet, please, congratulations, you're smarter than this guy as well. Where were we? Well, yes, they are, but not to allopaths. To the holistic physician, the distinction in the symptomology of the disease are everything. We say that there are types of pneumonia, types of arthritis, etc. Well, that is true. But this is as far as we are willing to take it. Terminology has its place, of course, and holistic practitioners understand that if somebody has a degenerative disease of pneumonia, for example, then there are certain indications that we can expect to see in their blood work on their physical exam, so that we know that there are certain predictable signs to the different stages of pneumonia in general that we need to be on the lookout for. You mean something like an MD might do? Shocking. But our treatments are not designed to treat pneumonia. Why would you not treat the pneumonia? That's just mind-boggling. Instead, he's treating the symptoms of the pneumonia. No, that's ridiculous. Where were we? Yep, because pneumonia is an intangible description only. I cannot believe this guy is basically saying, oh yeah, Flamonia doesn't exist, it's just a word. That's like saying smallpox doesn't exist, it's just a word. Yeah. The holistic treatment is designed to treat the person who is suffering from the thing that we are calling pneumonia. 10 different people with pneumonia would need 10 different treatments from a homeopath. No, they wouldn't. If you went to an MD, if these 10 people went to an MD and they all had pneumonia, then an MD would examine them and say, yes, you do have pneumonia, take this. But, you know, so how is it possible for all of them to have the same thing? They don't. They do. We've you know, if 10 people go to the doctor with pneumonia symptoms and the doctor examines them and says, yes, you do have pneumonia, here you go, then bingo, pneumonia. So how is it possible for them all to have the same things? They don't. They all suffer from different manifestations of different disease process, which is generally referred to as pneumonia. Get it? Good. Now I'm out of breath. Well, great, you may think. So how does that work? I mean, how does the law of similars bring about healing? Good question. The answer is, I don't know. So you don't even know how the law that you rely on to treat people works. Yeah, good job, Pete. Good job. Nobody knows why or how the law of similar works. We only know that it works, and yet when you try to maybe show this in a lab setting, it's proven false, and, you know, you'd be out of work. Its mechanism is unclear in this regard. It is like gravity. Science can measure the effects of gravity and know what to expect when it is present, but they have no idea of what causes it. Not even Einstein could figure it out. Oh Christ! Oh Christ! I don't even know what to say to that. Oh my god! Oh my god! I cannot believe he just said that. Oh my cry! Oh my god! That's just ridiculous. That is so ridiculous. He's going to compare it to the law of similars. So it continues, so it is with the law of similars. Here's the thing. We know, we've tested gravity. We know it works. We can see its effects. We know why and how it is caused. It is caused because of the gravitational pull of the Earth that we are sitting on. We know this. We've studied it. We've proved it. Your law of similars has never been proved in a lab, and as you just said, you don't know how it works. Hence, you are a quack, and you are conning people, Peter. You are a con man. I cannot believe this is in his book, and people admit this guy, you know, worked. It's unbelievable. We can see it work and predict with accuracy what will happen. Then how do you know it's accurate if you don't know how it works? And what will happen when it's activated? But the mechanism by which it works is unclear. There is, however, an interesting analogue to the law of similars in the world of physics. It is interesting to talk about. When scientists study how waves affect each other, they notice an interesting phenomenon. Wave 2 forms of exactly the same wavelengths and frequency run into each other, but they cancel each other out completely. This is the science that noise-cancelling headphones are based on. Yes, science. We've seen something, we've observed it, we tested it, and proved it works. You've admitted you don't know how your law of similar works, the supposed key founding stone of your homeopathy medicine, but you don't know how it works. So how then does any treatment you've said so far in this book, you know, works? Because you don't know how your law of similars works. I remember a physics experiment from my days in high school. The teacher took a regular waterproof tank that had pelagics on the bottom of it so you could see through it. He put about an inch of water into it and you could see it on the overhead projector, so the image of water could be magnified and projected onto the wall. He then dropped 2 fishing sinkers into the same weight in the opposite ends of the tank from equal weights. When the weights hit each other, they created waves that were exactly the same wavelengths, height and frequency, as the 2 sets of waves rushed to each other from opposite ends of the tank and caused lots of turbulence in the water. But they were finally intersected each other in the middle of the tank and were completely calm. Not a ripple, very cool. This was not happenstance, that was the teacher wasn't a magician. The experiment was meant to demonstrate the particular law of physics which states 2 identical waveforms intersect, they will cancel each other out. Here's the thing, if you go and look into science, there are huge numbers of volumes written about this, and yet your law of similars proves nothing. You know, you have no scientific evidence to the extent that there is probably written about how waveforms cancel each other out. You have nothing to prove that your law of similars works. You've just admitted you don't know how your law of similars works. Scientists know how that works. It is theorised that the law of similars works in the same way, but no one knows for sure. Well, I think you better know for sure if you're going to be, you know, diagnosing people using the law of similars. But what we know for sure is that when we deliver medicine to a sick person, that is, that will cause in the healthy person the exact same set of symptoms, the sick person's illnesses disappear. Here an example is an excerpt from the book, The Testimony of the Clinic, by E.B. Nash, a prominent 19th century homeopath. I include it here for 3 reasons. Why are you including the words of a 19th century homeopath? No doctor would include this. They would always use the most up-to-date, relevant medical information. But then, again, these guys can't, because they know that any testing of their treatment or law of similars will prove them wrong. I give to you a little taste of grand history of homeopathy. 2, because it is an excellent example of the power of the law of similars correlated and activated. And 3, because I like the way these guys used to write. To be honest, I'm going to skip that, because it's far more interesting reading what he's writing than anything else. But needless to say, it is basically just a record of a guy who went, this is the law of similars, I gave this, it worked, it must work, no other reason, it works. That's it, essentially. That's to sum up the quote. How about that? It was nice. It was a nice case because it quite clearly shows that the homeopathic necessity of prescribing exactly the right medicine for the right patient, and also about the selection of the correct medicine, can turn on a dime. If Nash hadn't known about the boy's inability to lie down, nor see his pounding carotid arteries, he wouldn't have selected arum as his medicine, and the child would not have recovered. Furthermore, all the lab work and diagnostic recovery in the world would not have helped him one bit discover the curative treatment. Yes, it probably would have. What you probably had there, particularly in that example, was certainly an example of a boy who was suffering from nausea. Mainly because he'd been roller skating around and had an accident, basically. But you know, he gave him one medicine, it didn't work. He gave him another medicine, it didn't work. And then miraculously he found that the boy couldn't lie down because he was dizzy when it happened, when he started to lie down. So he gave him this other medicine. Oh, miraculous, it worked. And not maybe because the effects of his accident had worn off by that point, but you know, again, you're trying to take the word of someone who was writing in the 19th century seriously, and that didn't have all the advantages of medical knowledge we have today, and yet this guy who wrote this book is relying on such words. But you know, furthermore, all the lab work and discovery and the diagnosed discovery in the world would have not have helped him one bit discover the curative treatment. What was required was the acute observation of the subjective symptoms of the disease. This is really quite a profound statement when you think about it. As a modern medicine hurtles down the road of MRIs and CT scans and sophisticated blood analysis, they get further and further away from being able to see and understand the most important symptoms of all, the subjective ones. And they get further and further from the cure. No, they don't. We know that there are things we cannot see. MDs know that if a patient describes something, very often there can be deeper implications. There can be things going on in your body which you cannot describe to a doctor, that a doctor cannot see. Hence why we have MRI scans and CT scans and blood work, because we can get to the root cause of what is going on in your body, and hence we can treat it. Modern medicine, is backed up by hundreds of scientific, papers. This guy is based on his say-so. And yet again, I keep on saying it, but this guy is considered a medical genius by some people. So far, I'm reading this guy's book and I am unimpressed. In fact, my opinion has only gotten worse of him as we've gone on through this book. The law of similars was discovered by a German physician in the 19th century. His name was Samuel Frederick Christian Hahnemann. He was the discoverer and the original architect of homeopathic medicine. He developed the homeopathic medicine system after discovering that malaria patients who were given large amounts of the drug quinine, as side effects of quinine, the exact same symptoms as people who suffering from cholera. Hahnemann gave cholera patients quinine, and they experienced rapid and permanent cures of their cholera. For anyone who's, I'm quite shocked by that. That is not true at all. Quinine is not a cure for cholera. Nor, if you give someone quinine, there are no side effects to the state that at least cholera does. Remember, there is a reason why, if you go back and look at the 19th century, cholera was a big deal. We know it was a waterborne disease, but at the time the Victorians didn't. They thought it was a miasma. And again, we can cure cholera now because we have, more sophisticated medicines thanks to, medical science. Something this guy seems to want to put into touch and get rid of. But This was a tremendous medical breakthrough and opened the door into the nature of illnesses and the treatment thereof. No, it didn't, because guess what? Cholera was not cured. What it took to cure cholera, what people continue to go on about when they say, oh, public health was a big... Yes, it did, because guess what? We discovered that cholera was a waterborne disease, and we discovered that the towns and cities did not have good enough and safe water supplies for people to drink from. When we solved this, cholera pretty much disappeared. But when people got cholera, they were still pretty much destined to die. Quinine was not a cure, despite what this guy says. At the beginning of this chapter, I alluded to the almost mystical nature of the law of similars. Here's the thing. Science does not like mysticism, nor do I, as someone who is a skeptic. Mysticism is just an excuse to excuse the unexplained, when you can't explain something. And by the looks of it, because you know nothing about the law of similars, it's unbelievable to the fact that he admits that and then diagnoses people with it. That is unbelievable. I almost alluded to the mystical nature of the law of similars. Here's what was going on that line of thought. Do you think it just a little peculiar that nature's developed substances, plants and the elements like gold, to give homeopaths the perfect instruments in the active to activate the law of similars? What are the chances of something like this happening randomly, again and again? In Nash's patient above, the boy's rhythmic heart displayed symptoms that were perfectly matched by a homeopathic permutation of the element gold. This means if you dig up some gold out of the ground, you prepare it homeopathically, you give it to a bunch of healthy people, and you record the symptoms they develop. So essentially you're saying you should poison people and just watch what happens. That is very unethical, Pete. I shouldn't have to explain how unethical that is. The symptoms they develop are an exact match to the symptoms which occur when some people are afflicted with rheumatic heart disease. What is going on here? No, if you have gold, if you homeopathically prepare gold, which is, again, by the way, distilling water, so this guy would put a piece of gold in water, he would then drain the water, he would then take a pinch of that water, put it into other water to dilute the gold content, and then do it again and again until it's reached its perfect distillation. And then, give it to someone. I could do that cure right now in front of you. I could actually do that. In fact, I'm tempted to. Just to show people homeopathic. But I might do later on as another video. That's another time. That's a topic for another time, I think. If life, the universe and everything are just random connections of chemicals, as the allopaths assume, then the chances that naturally occurring substances would be able to cure diseases that should be just the side of the impossible. They do, again and again. For an instance, the element phosphorus produces many symptoms of bronchitis and pneumonia. Digius pereira, a plant with the common name foxglove, when prepared homeopathy, gives us many symptoms of heart failure and depression. So he would give a drug, he would give someone a medicine known to cause heart failure to someone who has in danger of risking heart failure? How many people has this guy killed? I have to ask that question. Homeopathic poison ivy is a fantastic medicine for certain types of anxiety and arthritis. The list goes on. We find in nature over and over again the perfect raw materials from which to generate medicines to cure the sick. Perhaps as humans, our relationship to the earth is a little more dynamic than we've previously thought. No, it really doesn't. That's ridiculous. The phenomenon of this unusual healing capacity of the naturally occurring substances is one of the greatest achievements for saving as many plant and animal species as we can, and it is entirely possible that plant species to be able to cure certain manifestations of the AIDS epidemic or certain types of cancer have been burned to extinction somewhere in the Amazon. Well, Pete, according to your law of similars, how about radiation treatment? Because guess what? Certain type of radiation can give people cancers. So according to your law of similars, giving someone cancer will cure their cancer. Our troubled cousins of the allopathic MDs are not even aware that the law of similars exists, because it doesn't exist. It is quackery. It is mystical mumbo jumbo, and you've admitted much. You've even admitted that it doesn't work. Or if they are, they discount it as quackery because they aren't taught it in medical school. Yes, they do discount it as quackery because it is not proven. It is not a scientific way to treat someone. It is one of the most hypocritical and disappointing things about allopaths. On the other hand, they claim to be the high priests of science. For them, it is double-blind this, double-blind that, and don't use that treatment if it hasn't passed the muster of being published in a peer-reviewed medical journal. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. That is important. That is how you prove something works scientifically. That is how you prove and know without a shadow of a doubt to give someone this medication, it will work. That is why you are branded as a quack, Pete, because none of your medicines have been subjected, well, your medicines have been subjected to double-blind tests, and they have not worked. They have not passed double-blind tests. They have not been subjected to rigorous tests in labs. Homeopathy has been proven to be nothing more than a placebo in double-blind tests. You are a quack, and people who espouse this and use it to treat people are quacks for none other than the money. But when it comes to one of the greatest medical discoveries of the last 200 years, it really wasn't. The law of similars, they dismiss it out of hands without experimenting it scientifically at all. Why would we bother, using and wasting medical scientific resources to show something doesn't work when we already know it doesn't work? When we know that it contradicts and would even, take this guy for example. He's already said, well, if someone's suffering from, foxglove, from heart failure, well, if they're suffering from heart failure already, let's just give them foxglove. Surely that will make them better, giving them something that, causes heart failure. Woo! Magical, Pete, magical. And you wonder why you're called a quack. You would think that some place like the Harvard Medical School would have examined this phenomenon seriously. They have not. These intellectually stilted people are no better than the scientists of Galileo's time who had him imprisoned for postulating the ridiculous notion that the sun and not the earth was the centre of the solar system. But here's the thing, Galileo was able to prove to prove his theory He had evidence and was able to present that evidence and was able to show that his theories were right and correct. Hence why at the time, his theory was proven to be, accurate and correct. His model of the universe was then proven because he had evidence to back it up. So that's chapter 9. What to say about chapter 9 was absolutely, it's horrifying to say the least. But it really is horrifying when you get to that. And they're saying, oh, give them this, this causes heart failure, so surely it must cure heart failure. This is, again, I'm lost for words. I really am. I'm lost for words. I don't know what to say about it. Because, what can you say about it? He has no evidence to support any of what he's saying is true. And again, at the end, he used the Galileo example. And, the fact that, double blind this and, peer review that. That's important, Pete. Why not subject your tests and treatments to a scientific exam? If you are so confident that it works, go do it. Go prove that your treatments work, but you won't. Because you are terrified that they will fail, and you know they will fail. Because we've already know that homeopathy is no better than placebo when we've done scientific tests on this. We've wasted money only on a video I've done recently about the energy healing that was, money wasted on stuff we know doesn't work. But there you go. This is the madness that we're having to deal with, and yet people believe this guy as some sort of medical authority when me, as someone who isn't medically trained, can poke holes in everything he's just said. It's unbelievable. I'd love to have a sit-down interview with this guy sometime. I'd love to debate him. I really would. I doubt he'd ever do it, but there you go. Maybe if enough people say, I want to debate him, maybe he'll get his attention. I don't know. We'll see.